dealers that sell gold and silver. But national dealers? It sounds so impersonal and far away. Guess what? Fox Valley Coins in Naperville is a national dealer, and they're right here in our backyard. With Fox Valley Coins close by, you won't have to relinquish your personal information and money through the mail and hope that you receive what you ordered in the next days, weeks, or months. Most of the time at Fox Valley Coins, you just walk in the store, pick out what you want, pay for it, and walk out the door. It can be that easy. And if you're interested in selling your rare collector coins or currency, Fox Valley Coins specialize in the rare ones. Buying and selling individual coins and currency, as well as all gold, silver, platinum, palladium, and rhodium in coin, bar, and scrap form. They'll even make house calls when appropriate. Fox Valley Coins is one light north of I-88 on Route 59 in Naperville. They're closed on Sundays and have been dealing with integrity since 1981. Check out foxvalleycoins.com. That's foxvalleycoins.com.
If you're a healthy, self-employed small business owner with income too high to qualify for an Obamacare subsidy, I have good news. Recent regulatory changes have created new, lower-priced health insurance options that are available to you right now. These policies include a nationwide PPO with access to Chicago's teaching hospitals like University of Chicago, Northwestern, Rush, and Lurie Children's Hospital. Did you know that a self-employed husband and wife team can purchase group health insurance that covers pre-existing conditions, even if they have no employees? Are you nearing the age of 65 and trying to figure out the Medicare maze? Call me. I can help.
If you're tired of calling a bureaucrat at an 800 number to help you navigate Obamacare, then you need a local expert on your side. Your own health insurance mentor. C. Stephen Tucker from healthinsurancementors.com is someone I know and trust. He's a 20-year licensed broker who's been educating our listeners for 7 years. Steve, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Thanks, Dan. They can visit healthinsurancementors.com or call me directly at 630-674-1551.
AM 560, The Answer.
Sandman, like Mr. Sandman.
He's not. No. This is a guy.
gentle.
This is a kid, really. He's still a kid, even though he's in the collegiate level now, that stands his ground. And he told his story yesterday, put it right between the nation's eyes. I loved it.
My classmates and I visited the Lincoln Memorial. I found myself face to face with Nathan Phillips and other professional protesters looking to turn me into the latest poster child showing why Trump is bad. While the media portrayed me as an aggressor with a relentless smirk on my face, in reality, the video confirms I was standing with my hands behind my back and an awkward smile on my face that hid two thoughts. One, don't do anything that might further agitate the man banging a drum in my face. And two, I was trying to follow a family friend's advice, never to do anything to embarrass your family, your school, or your community. Before I knew what was happening, it was over. One of Mr. Phillips' fellow agitators yelled out, "We got him. It's all right here on video. And we won, Grandpa."
And Sandman on the cancel culture, which tried to cancel him and him fighting back.
The full war machine of the mainstream media revved up into attack mode. They did so without researching the full video of the incident, without ever investigating Mr. Phillips' motives, or without ever asking me for my side of the story. And do you know why? Because the truth was not important. Advancing their anti-Christian, anti-conservative, anti-Donald Trump narrative was all that mattered. And if advancing their narrative ruined the reputation and future of a teenager from Covington, Kentucky, well, so be it.
And thank God he won his defamation of character suit against major media outlets.
I was hoping he'd then whip out the CNN check and be like, yeah, take a bite out of this and just be like flipping money out of his hand. Right, yeah. But he's too much of a class act for that. That's what I would have done because I'm not a class act. But he was great. And that was the perfect segue to our friend Abby Johnson. She of Unplanned fame. If you haven't seen the Unplanned movie, see it. It's on the streaming services.
Former Planned Parenthood employee who then got out and is helping others.
That's right, helping others to get out. That's
Right.
specifically what her foundation does, help people get out of Planned Parenthood, participating in that ghoulish, dastardly business, and that's what it is. And she also put it right between the eyes for those Planned Parenthood sympathizers and so many people, frankly, that are just ignorant of who Planned Parenthood is and what it does.
Today, almost 80% of Planned Parenthood abortion facilities are strategically located in minority neighborhoods. And every year, Planned Parenthood celebrates its racist roots by presenting the Margaret Sanger Award.
Yeah, so accurate is Abby Johnson that they removed Margaret Sanger from their Manhattan mill, right? They're feeling the pressure.
Yeah, because she was a KKK supporter and more.
And Abby Johnson also had something to say about Trump that's consistent with what I've said. She didn't quite put it this way, but on the pro-life issue in particular, which is one of the few issues conservatives are actually winning within the culture, school choice, gun rights, pro-life. That's where we're winning. Abby Johnson, what I've said about Trump is he's like Batman for the pro-life movement. He's not necessarily the hero you want, but he's the hero you need. And Abby Johnson echoed the sentiment in a different way.
Abortion is real. I know what it sounds like. I know what abortion smells like. Did you know abortion even had a smell? I've been the perpetrator to these babies, to these women. And I now support President Trump because he has done more for the unborn than any other president.
For more on this and some of the commentary, that you've just heard, we're pleased to be joined by Marjorie Dannenfelser. She's the president of the Susan B. Anthony List, national co-chair of the Pro-Life Voices for Trump Coalition, and author of the just released, like yesterday, Life is Winning, Inside the Fight for Unborn Children and Their Mothers. Marjorie, thanks for joining us. Please, appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So a nice 1-2 punch yesterday for pro-lifers between Nick Sandmann, who people may have forgotten was at the March for Life, and it was after that, participating in the March for Life, that incident occurred that turned him into a nationally known name for good and bad. And then Abby Johnson, nice 1-2 punch for people who are concerned about the sanctity of life from conception to natural death.
That's right, and I think that, I know that yesterday was a great example of actually what the point of the book, and thanks for mentioning it. What's most important is that we are winning, and that is, and you referenced that a little while ago, that's why it's the title of the book actually taken from my friend Mike Pence and how he communicates it in all of his speeches. And the reason is basically what Abby and Nick and many others, and what I tend to do in my work in the political field, is to really make the life issue front and center. It's an unbelievably beautiful, horrifying, compelling argument. And when you are proud and you're bold in making that argument, you win. If you bury it, you pretend it didn't exist, you teach it, treat it like the stepchild or the forgotten aunt at the Thanksgiving dinner that nobody really wants to talk to, then it's exactly what it sounds like, and therefore never makes its way into the place where it should be, the court of public opinion, and legislatures who must decide what our laws are. As you know, right now, we're not even allowed to make those because the Supreme Court says they don't care what we think. But we think we're so close to overturn Roe versus Wade so that we can actually start to make those laws real in the states and save millions and millions of lives.
And it's just to put a fine point on the issue of winning the culture while we're trying to win in state legislatures, but ultimately before the high court, most likely. The Guttmacher Institute, which is pro-abortion, looking at the abortion rate over the last 48 years since Roe v. Wade became the law of the land. Number of abortions per thousand among women aged 15 to 44 at its height in the late 70s, early 80s at about 29 per thousand women, number of abortions. And today, or for the numbers most recently, 2017, 13.5. So it's been cut by more than half, not because of the law per se, for the most part, but because of people recognizing that's not something they want to be a part of.
That's right. It's not in any way because of the law, because no laws have been passed that actually stop abortion at any stage. And you're right. Those are the initial stages of a truly successful human rights movement, where the public has met the horror face to face, and they are beginning to say no after real human experience with the horror. Think of all the other horrors in our American history that have been stopped because of the pictures, because of the reality that finally came to light. And then, like every other human rights movement that takes itself seriously, it says, and also, no more. It has to stop. So really, laws are a part of culture. They're not separate at all. They're really right in the middle of it. And Trump showed that that is the case. Because as it was sort of semi-buried as a public issue, he knew, and he had a gut, that this is something that needs to be taken out of the closet, exposed to the light of day, right in the center of politics. Because what is politics? It's just a conversation about who we are. And he did that, contrasted it with Hillary Clinton. Now we have the contrast with Kamala Harris and Biden, and that is a gift.
Yeah, that's what I was.
A black and white conversation.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about presidential candidate Joe Biden. He used to be pro-life, now is pro-choice. And where does Kamala Harris really believe in full-term abortion?
Yeah, he did the opposite of Trump. Biden went from pro-life, supposedly, to adamantly pro-choice, and you and everybody on the line here paying for it up until birth. That's his view, and he used to be pro-life. Kamala Harris believes that if you have a religiously motivated reason for being pro-life, you don't get to sit on any federal court. She would turn you down. And as AG, she promised in the future, when she was for all of her leadership in the future, that if she ever got to the place where she could, she would make sure that any law passed on the federal level now would have to go through some test that she would apply before it would allow it to be implemented. There is the contrast.
Marjorie. Oh, there we go. I'm sorry, we lost you for a second there. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It's perfect. The need to know, and we have a perfect contrast.
I wanted to get your reaction to something David French wrote in response to somebody, David French, who's a never Trumper, as you know, suggesting that those who are critical of him not supporting Trump just on the matter of life and advancing the cost for life. He makes a number of arguments, starting with the argument, I should say, not the fact, that presidents don't really matter, that the Supreme Court is a institution of stability. There hasn't been much advance on the life issue, even with a court that is titularly pro-life. And thus it's really a battle at the state legislative level and in the culture. And so supporting Trump or not supporting Trump is really immaterial to advancing the cause for life.
Wow, you really knew the question to make my blood boil. Yeah, I've read David. I know him. I think he's a good man. However, those are the words of someone who has forgotten the horror that he looks at when you look at an abortion in a sonogram when the child is recoiling away from the implement trying not to die. That's what Abby talked about last night. That is someone who doesn't know the ripple effects of these deaths every single day on everyone surrounding them. That's someone that thinks that maybe eventually, after many, 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 many deaths, we will get it and we'll wake up. Well, that's not the American way in every other civil and human rights cause that we've ever solved because of our founding documents. We have the tools to stop the horror. It's only a question of whether we will or not. And that's why this particular election, where we may never get a chance again, never, it's presuming upon the future to think that we'll ever get a chance again to reform the courts in a way that will actually stop the horror. So he is dead wrong, literally.
Yeah,
And,
it's something else too. He's engaged a little bit of sort of leftist style argumentation here, projecting onto others something that he is practicing. And I like David French too, though I disagree with him on this. But he writes that sort of best case scenario under Trump is 90% of the abortion legal regime remains in place, even if he gets to appoint a couple more Supreme Court justices, they're pro-life and so on and so forth. Well, okay. So your best case scenario, 90% abortion legal regime remains in place. Let's start from there. Well, 90% of 1.2 to 1.5 million is 120,000 to 150,000 abortions. That is not inconsequential.
Amen. Amen.
Number
it's the next door neighbor. Yeah.
And so it seems like he's calling to people who are advocating on behalf of Trump in advance of the life issue, pro-life absolutists, because they're criticizing him, when in point of fact, he's not willing to accept half a loaf if he can't get the whole loaf. And so he's actually the absolutist on the topic.
And you know what that is? That's called abolitionism. It's the same idea that there should be no tolerance for the death of the human race. That we ought all of these battles are connected, and that rights should be expanded. And the Declaration and the founding documents specifically addresses this, even though abortion was not even an argument back then because it was so understood to be horrible. So the idea, see, that is the problem, the corrosive nature of the human heart. We get used to the horror around us. The child gets used to abuse. We get used to abortion. We wrap it into our day-to-day life. Slavery, all of it. Child labor in the early 1900s. Yeah, well, and every argument against it is a utilitarian argument. Well, it's really tough. Economy depends upon it. Women's lives depend upon it. Well, those are rationalizations that hide that horror in every age, and that, unfortunately, David is a useful idiot in this argument. I'm not calling him an idiot. I'm just saying he's being useful in a way that stops the fruition and the flowering of the American ideal. So this election is our shot. It really is our shot to get it right, and that's what the choice is.
She is Marjorie Dannenfelser, president of the Susan B. Anthony List, national co-chair of the Pro-Life Voices for Trump Coalition, author of the just-released book, Life is Winning, Inside the Fight for Unborn Children and Their Mothers. Marjorie, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line. Coming up on Chicago's Morning Answer,
we'll get Wall Street Journal columnist and economist Steve Moore's reviews of what his friend Larry Kudlow had to say at the convention last night at 7:37.
But now let's get to it. Straight into the newsroom. Here is Mike Scott.
76 and sunshine. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers declaring a state of emergency in Kenosha, increasing the presence of the Wisconsin National Guard to 250 after overnight protests left at least 2 dead and others injured after an overnight shooting. Police have not confirmed who fired the shots. An attorney for the family of Jacob Blake says the officer who shot Blake should be arrested.